Thank you, Professor Shinde, for your inspiring and thought-provoking speech. Now, our second speaker is Mrs. Isis de Resende from Brazil. Before I invite her to speak here is a short introduction of her. Isis Resende is a lawyer by profession. She has been a member of the Theosophical Society since 1968. She is an international speaker. Her specialization is on subjects like meditation, the teachings of H.P. Blavatsky, the Mahatma letters, and Jungian ideas on dreams and symbols. Since May 2014, she is the president of the Inter-American Theosophical Federation. She is also a member of National Board of Directors of the Theosophical Society in Brazil, Director of Communication Department of TS in Brazil. She is an eminent speaker and has been lecturing in Brazil, Argentina, Peru, Colombia, Mexico, and many other countries, including USA, New Zealand, and Italy, and so many other countries. I would like her to share her views on the subject, what leads to insight. Mrs. Isis Resende.
Good morning. I was asked to tell you that the next meeting of the Inter-American Federation will be held in a cruise in May. If you want some more details, we can talk after. Well, my subject here, I will somehow repeat Mr. Shinde's words, although with other words. And my research was based especially on the Mahatma letters and HPB's writings. It's important to know that this is the biggest challenge we face in our lives. How to move from intellectual knowledge to spiritual insight. And there is no easy answer for that. The Mahatmas and HPB, they give some tips, some hints, some suggestion that we may apply in our lives, and we may move from intellectual knowledge to spiritual insight. It's very interesting. They tell us in letter number 10 that the way Hume used to deal with situations would never bring him beyond theoretical considerations. That applies to us. Depending on how we deal with situations, we may be caught in the field of intellectual knowledge. Depending on how we live, how we deal with situations, we may get to spiritual insight. There is a very well-known formula that shows the importance of study, meditation, and service. I would say that study, meditation, and service can lead us from intellectual knowledge to spiritual insight. And I would also add the steps of Kriya Yoga, Tapas, Svadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana. And they are somehow linked to study, meditation, and service. Study is extremely important. It broadens up our world's view. It increases our understanding. It enlarges our panorama in life. when we start studying, we become familiar with the teachings. We get used to this idea, these ideas. This familiarity is very important. It's a previous step before we are able to put the teachings into practice. Because we and the 7 billion people in this planet are very much tied up by the mentality of our time. It's very interesting that the Mahatmas in letter number 15 would tell Senate that he was like a child asking for big theories of maths before even know the rules of simple arithmetics. So, and there is also a very subtle and important factor that the progress we make in studying the arcane knowledge can strengthen and refine the mysterious links of sympathy that keeps us together in rapport with the great beings that guide humanity. This link of sympathy is made by deep study. And they tell us, once this connection is established, this connection will help us to, this connection, they will help us to put us in contact with that chain of energy that binds together the material and the immaterial cosmos, that chain that we call past, present, and future, in order to quicken our perception so that we may clearly grasp not only things related to matter, but also to spirit. Let me repeat. To quicken our perceptions so as to clearly grasp not merely all things related to matter, but to spirit too. I think he's talking about insight. Clearly grasping. Well, but how do we study? Blavatsky, in the first article she wrote, she considered her first spiritual shot. It's an article called Hereafter, published in 1875. She says, book learning, vast as it may be, will always prove insufficient, even to the analytical mind, unless supported by personal experience and practice. So, book learning, apart from our lives, is not enough. But we have to relate our lives with this book learning, so that what we read will improve our understanding of our own lives, and our own lives will improve our understanding of what is written in books. And that brings us to svadhyaya, self-study, relating what we read with our own lives. We can think, how can these great beings help us to connect with this chain of past, present, and future, if we are just like parrots repeating what we don't know? Of course, we have to relate these teachings with our own lives and make it alive like tips so that we may move from intellectual knowledge to spiritual insight. That connects us with tapas, because if we relate what we read with our own lives, that implies that we have to change ourselves and we have to move forward in this direction. We must be the change we want to see in the world. We must be examples of the teachings. So, Svadhyaya without tapas will also prove to be insufficient. And with tapas, we create the appropriate conditions so that spiritual insight may occur. I think this is something definitely important for us Theosophists. Generally, us Theosophists, we are very idealistic people. We want a better world. We want perceptions. We want to be happy. But sometimes we are caught in ways of living that are in direct opposition to the teachings. So we have to adjust our lives to the teachings, because Svadhyaya without tapas will not be efficient. Maybe follow some practices. If they become just a routine, they may not lead us to insight either. It's very interesting what Krishnamurti said in his book, Towards Discipleship. It is a result of a seminary given in Italy in 1926. He was just speaking and people were writing down. And in this book, he says, we must take out our jacket and throw ourselves into this work. It must be something really to involve our lives into this process. And that leads us to meditation. Related to meditation, there are several very important tips in the letters Laura Holloway received from Mahatma Kutumi. Laura Holloway was a widow, an American widow. She was a psychic person. She had some psychic abilities developed, but she had some problems. And she worked in 2 months more than the best members in 5 years. She was a hard worker, and that's why she deserved to receive some advices from these perfect beings. The Mahatma says that if she could overcome, she could get self-control over her self-will and overcome her too great sensibility, she could become the most perfect pillar of the Theosophical Society. Someone that didn't persevere, went away, but had an opportunity. Like all of us, we may catch the opportunity, change our lives, improve our connection with these higher beings, and become strong pillars of the Theosophical Society. The first advice she received: try to learn to stand firm on your legs, child, before you venture walking. There was also a lot of advices concerning her moods, because she would go a step forward one day and 2 steps back the other day. And the Mahatma told her that she needed to develop a clear, calm mental state, balanced, contemplative, fit to receive impressions from outside and to transmit her own inner perceptions. Because the mind can be made to work with electric swiftness in high excitement, but buddhi never. Insights are flashing coming from buddhi. So, to calm our minds, to have this equanimity is our homework. So, it's very important to be able to receive these spiritual insights. He said further, you cannot acquire psychic power until the causes of psychic debility are removed. How can you know the real from the unreal, the true from the false? Only by self-development. Okay, we all know that. But how do we develop ourselves? The Mahatma says, by first carefully guarding yourself against the causes of self-deception. Oh, so something very bad may happen, but you can see it and you prevent future disasters. This reminds me, Professor P. Krishna, when talking about the fire in the forest. Professor P. Krishna always tells us that if you are in the woods walking and you see a small fire, you can anticipate that this small fire will burn the whole forest. But as a small fire, you can stop it with your hands or with your feet. But if you are not attentive enough, it will burn, and you need a lot of trucks, maybe even helicopters to stop the fire. So, meditation, deep study is also to be very attentive, realizing what are the consequences of our acts. So, in this way, we are somehow connected with that chain of past, present, and future, realizing that the things we are living now are results of past deeds. Now, if we do so and so, such and such results will follow, and we may be able to prevent some future disasters. With attention, it's very interesting, the definition of meditation the Mahatma gave her. He said, you can do by spending a certain fixed hour or hours each day all alone in self-contemplation, writing, reading, the purification of your motives, the study and the corrections of your faults, the planning of your work in external life. These hours should be sacredly reserved for this purpose. Little by little, your sight will clear. You will find that the mist pass away, your interior faculties strengthen, your attraction towards us gain force, and certainty replaces doubt. So that's some tips about study, meditation, about tapas and svadhyaya. And what about Ishvara Pranidhana? In the first letter Synod received, he was already told that the knowledge he got imposed him the sacred duty to instruct the public and prepare the public for future possibilities by gradually opening their eyes to truth. Because the purpose of the Theosophical Society is not so much to gratify individual aspirations, but to serve our fellow man. And it's also stated that their correspondence was established for the good of the many. Synod, for the good of the many, had the task to write books, to write articles. What about us? What can we do for the good of the many? Look around. There is a lot of suffering. Are we able to learn to overcome our sufferings and help people to do so? The Mahatmas tell Synod, will you not try, for the sake of shortening the distances between us, to disentangle yourself from the net of life and death, where they are all caught, and cherish less lust and desire? Will you try? Lust and desire may keep you away from spiritual insight. Will you try? Maybe you'll not manage in the first moment, but will you try? The tip is there. And it's clear that Synod was not ready to be a disciple. Synod was not ready to link his life completely with the Mahatmas. But there was something else to be done. And the Mahatma says, there below lies your long-shared field of enterprise and usefulness. And he also comments that the advantage of Synod is that his eloquence, his ability to talk and to manifest himself was not so much in the brain, but in the heart. Like the Tathagata, like the Buddha. That's also very important, that the source of our eloquence should not be in the brain, but in the heart. So that means that we have to fill with our brains and think with our hearts. Oh, thank you very much. The voice of the silence will tell us, can there be bliss when all that lives must suffer? Shall thou be saved and hear the whole world to cry? Remain unselfish to the endless end. And I will finish my presentation with a story from Teresa of Calcutta. As you all know, Teresa of Calcutta used to take care of lepers. And there was this rich man seeing what she did, and suddenly he said, I wouldn't do what you do for any money in the world. And she said, neither do I. She was not doing it for money. It was her way of practicing Ishvara Pranidhana, her way of giving herself to life. So we can serve God by serving our fellow men, showing them that through study, meditation, and service, we can overcome our problems, our difficulties, and pass on from knowledge to insight. Thank you very much.